The future is shaping up to be far more interesting than most people expect. When conversations turn to Tesla's next battery generation, they usually stay focused on the obvious talking points. People talk about more range, faster charging, and lower costs, because those are easy to understand and easy to turn into headlines. But outside of speculation and marketing excitement, the most immediate and meaningful impact of a battery transition is showing up somewhere else entirely. It is already reshaping the used car market, long before most drivers fully understand what the new technology actually does. For anyone shopping for a used vehicle today, there is an unspoken question sitting in the background. How confident can you be that the car you are considering will not feel outdated a few years from now? When a company like Tesla introduces a new battery platform, does that suddenly make existing vehicles worse, or does it quietly change how future buyers think about risk, resale value, and timing? What surprises many people is that used car prices often react before the new technology ever reaches mass production. When Tesla signals a battery shift, the first reaction does not happen on the factory floor. It happens inside pricing models used by buyers, dealers, and resellers. This reaction can occur months and sometimes more than a year before a meaningful number of vehicles are delivered with the updated battery. The reason is simple. Used car buyers are not only purchasing transportation for today, they are buying an asset they expect to sell again later, and that future resale picture matters almost as much as current performance. In North America and Europe, many used vehicle purchases are made with a holding period of roughly 3 to 5 years in mind. Buyers look beyond whether the car works well today. They try to imagine how desirable it will be when they're ready to move on. That future perception is where battery transitions begin to matter. Consider a several-year-old Tesla Model Y with moderate mileage. In everyday driving, its real-world range is still more than enough for commuting, errands, and even longer trips. From a functional standpoint, nothing about the driving experience suddenly changes when Tesla hints at a new battery generation. However, resale pricing does not follow driving experience, it follows replacement risk. When Tesla introduces or strongly signals a new battery roadmap, whether through structural changes, chemistry adjustments, or manufacturing shifts, the market begins anchoring to a new expectation. Even without final specifications, buyers assume longer usable life, improved degradation behavior, or lower uncertainty over long-term ownership. That assumption alone is enough to shift how negotiations play out. Patterns from recent resale cycles show that once a new battery platform becomes widely expected, used listings often sit longer before selling. Vehicles that once moved quickly may begin spending extra weeks on the market. This delay is not necessarily due to lack of interest. It reflects buyers waiting for price concessions to compensate for perceived future uncertainty. That waiting period becomes the first sign of downward pressure. When someone evaluates a used Tesla at a certain price point, they're not only comparing it to another used example or even to a new version of the same model, they are comparing it to what they believe Tesla will offer next at the entry level. If a future vehicle with newer battery technology is expected to land not far above the used price, the used car suddenly feels harder to justify. It's not about the car being bad, it's about its resale path feeling less predictable. What makes this effect powerful is that it shows up even when the actual differences seem modest. A battery expected to deliver slightly more usable range over its lifespan does not radically change daily driving habits. Most people will never notice the difference during a normal week, yet it significantly changes how buyers estimate battery health several years down the road. If buyers believe newer batteries will age more gracefully, they mentally adjust future value upward for newer platforms and downward for older ones. That mental adjustment becomes a pricing gap in the present. Tesla amplifies this dynamic because its vehicles do not age quietly. Software updates continue to add features and refinements, which helps older cars stay relevant. At the same time, those updates can highlight hardware limitations that cannot be overcome with software alone. When a battery upgrade is framed as a platform shift rather than a small improvement, buyers assume future software and efficiency gains will increasingly favor the new baseline. As a result, older batteries lose value,
not because they perform worse today, but because they are seen as belonging to a pre-transition era.
This is fundamentally different from how traditional vehicles depreciate. Gas-powered cars tend to lose value through mileage accumulation and mechanical wear. Electric vehicles, especially those from Tesla, lose value through perceived technological distance. A clear battery roadmap shortens that distance abruptly. Used car buyers respond immediately because they price uncertainty in actual dollars, not in opinions or wait-and-see attitudes. One of the quiet forces shaping this market is what could be described as battery generation anxiety. This is not fear driven by sudden failures or dramatic drops in performance. It is a forward-looking concern about being on the wrong side of a technology shift. That concern starts influencing decisions long before any official specifications are published. In traditional car buying, generational changes are visible and gradual. A new body design arrives, fuel efficiency improves slightly, and safety features are added. Buyers understand that these changes unfold over time. Tesla's battery updates do not follow that pattern. They arrive as platform changes, and platform changes compress buyer confidence timelines. When Tesla hints at a new battery architecture, buyers begin estimating outcomes immediately. Even conservative assumptions can reshape pricing. If buyers believe a new battery generation could reasonably support a longer cycle life, that belief implies more perceived usable miles over the vehicle's lifetime. Whether those numbers are confirmed or not matters less than the fact that buyers begin recalculating exit value earlier. This recalculation shows up in behavior. Listings sit longer, offers come in lower, sellers hold firm at first, then gradually adjust. When the technology landscape feels stable, used Teslas often trade within a relatively narrow price range. Once a battery transition enters the conversation, that range widens. Sellers anchor to past prices, buyers anchor to future options. The space between those anchors is where transactions slow down. Two similar vehicles can diverge significantly in price, not because of condition, but because of how close buyers believe a transition may be. Certain groups are especially sensitive to this uncertainty. Buyers on fixed incomes or those planning to keep a vehicle for several years value predictability more than cutting-edge performance. Once the belief takes hold that a battery platform is nearing the end of its competitive window, older packs begin to feel like shrinking assets. The car still works, but the confidence horizon shortens. A buyer who once planned to hold the car for 4 years may now price it as if 3 years is the safe limit. That 1-year compression alone can translate into a noticeable price reduction today. This is how used car prices become disconnected from objective performance. A Tesla with sufficient real-world range still meets the needs of most drivers. Daily travel distances are modest, and long trips remain manageable. But buyers do not price for average days. They price for worst-case scenarios in future regret. Once a psychological expiration date exists, price becomes the only lever available to offset discomfort. Tesla's battery roadmap does not stop at affecting its own vehicles. It quietly resets expectations across the broader used car market, pulling both older electric vehicles and gas-powered cars into the same pressure zone. This is not about Tesla outperforming competitors on paper. It is about redefining what acceptable ownership risk looks like. On the electric vehicle side, pricing is closely tied to perceived longevity. Buyers ask how many confident years remain. For a moderately used electric car, buyers may assume several more years of reliable ownership as long as the technology feels settled. When Tesla introduces the idea that future batteries could extend usable life, the perceived remaining life of older platforms shrinks. A vehicle that once felt like a multi-year asset now feels like something with a shorter runway. That shift carries immediate pricing consequences. Sellers often resist this change at first. Listings remain posted at older prices and transactions slow. Over time, as inventory builds and buyers remain cautious, prices adjust downward. This gradual decline reflects the market negotiating a new baseline rather than reacting to a single announcement. Interestingly, some non-Tesla electric vehicles may experience less immediate pressure.
not because they are superior, but because buyers do not expect rapid platform displacement. The technology feels static, which can temporarily stabilize prices. However, this stability can vanish once Tesla establishes a credible lower entry point with newer battery technology. At that moment, buyers begin cross-shopping differently, and the entire market shifts. Gas-powered vehicles are not immune to this effect.
Traditionally, they compete on familiarity and perceived ease of repair, but they also carry uncertainties related to fuel costs, maintenance, and long-term regulations. When Tesla's battery roadmap suggests more predictable long-term electric ownership, buyers reevaluate what risks they are willing to accept. A used gas vehicle may appear cheaper up front, but when buyers consider fuel and maintenance over several years, the total ownership cost often rises significantly. When compared against a used electric vehicle with lower perceived long-term uncertainty, the gas option can start to feel like the riskier choice. Tesla does not need to directly undercut gas vehicles. It only needs to reduce uncertainty enough that alternatives feel less predictable. What makes this shift especially powerful is that it operates almost entirely on expectation. The market moves on hints, timelines, and perceived direction. Even subtle signals that Tesla is aligning future platforms around longer-lasting batteries are enough to compress depreciation across older vehicles, both electric and gas-powered. As a result, buyers feel caught in a difficult position. Buy now and risk owning something viewed as part of a fading generation, or wait and risk prices moving again. That tension increases sensitivity to every rumor and update. The real impact of Tesla's next battery is not simply additional range, it is the speed at which the market begins pricing risk. Once buyers believe a new battery generation is on the horizon, used car values start adjusting immediately, well before the first vehicle reaches a driveway. That shift is already underway, quietly reshaping decisions for buyers and sellers alike.